I'm Tsu-Jae Liu. I'm a professor of electrical engineering and computer sciences at the University of California, Berkeley. I've been on the faculty here since 1996, so that's almost 28 years. Currently, I also have an administrative leadership position as Dean of the College of Engineering, which includes 7 departments. So not only electrical engineering, computer sciences, but also material science and engineering, mechanical engineering, bioengineering, civil and environmental engineering, nuclear engineering, and industrial engineering and operations research.
Wow, that's really impressive. So do you mind explaining your journey to how you got to where you currently are today?
So at a research institution like UC Berkeley, they expect faculty in general to have a doctorate degree. So I earned all of my higher education degrees at Stanford University. I chose to major in electrical engineering as an undergraduate because I knew that engineering could help people, help save lives. I had decided early on that I wasn't cut out to be a medical doctor, but I knew that doctors used tools that were designed by engineers to diagnose and to treat patients. So that's how I chose electrical engineering. And that was in the 80s, 1980s, when Silicon Valley was booming, continually growing. So there was a lot of excitement around semiconductors. And so that influenced me to take some courses in semiconductor devices and technology. I decided to stay for a 5th year to earn a master's degree. And during that time, I had the chance to serve as a teaching assistant for some classes to help support myself. And I found that I enjoyed that very much. And I also got to learn to meet some PhD students who were really excited about their research. And one of them is my husband, and he encouraged me to pursue a PhD at Stanford. So I didn't plan on it, but I stayed on to pursue a PhD. And when I graduated, I knew that I would like the option to become a faculty member someday. So I went to work at the Xerox Palo Alto Research Center. It's a place where a lot of inventions were conceived, such as the graphical user interface that we all are accustomed to now, first used in Apple Mac computers. Well, it was actually in the Xerox Alto computers there. And then the computer mouse was invented there. Laser printing was invented there, Ethernet. A lot of things were invented there. They had early prototypes of the iPad and the smartphones at that many years before that concept was successfully commercialized. So I learned a lot when I was working at the Xerox Palo Alto Research Center. And after a few years, I had the opportunity to come to Berkeley as a faculty member. So that's how I ended up here, because I really enjoy doing research, but also enjoy working with bright and motivated students to really help them achieve their full potential and go on and do positive things to change the world.
That's really cool. So how did you achieve the current leadership position that you have? How did you get from a faculty member to the dean?
Yeah, good question. Well, before I became dean, I served in some other leadership positions, including as chair of the EECS department. I think just naturally you gain more experience in managing different aspects of what it takes to run an organization. So that includes financial and staff and just the logistical aspects of managing an organization that you don't have to worry about as much as a faculty member. So I stepped up to serve as chair of the EECS department because I wanted to see a faster rate of progress in diversifying the student population, because there were not as many women in our undergraduate program as well as the graduate program. So I really wanted to see that pace of increase accelerate, because I think it's important if we're innovating technologies that people depend on, society depends on, and society comprises more than half women. I think it's important that the people who are designing and building these devices, systems, processes include a reasonable representation of women. So I thought that was important. That's why I stepped up to serve as department chair. And more recently, 5-6 years ago, I chose to step up as dean of engineering, primarily because I wanted to transform the culture of engineering to make it more welcoming and inclusive for all people, because we are seeing increased percentages of women in the College of Engineering across all the engineering subfields. But we want to make sure that all these students feel like they're really supported to thrive here rather than just to survive our rigorous curriculum. Because the more successful our students are, no matter if they're male, female, or from various race, ethnicities, no matter what background and lived experiences they have, they should all have a chance to reach their full potential and thrive here in school. So I thought that was important. And so that's why I stepped up as dean.
Yeah, that's really inspiring. So was there a specific moment in your career that really motivated you?
Well, just knowing that my work has impact, that's what inspires me and keeps me going. Of course, the outstanding students, outstanding professors, and staff, colleagues here to work with. And, we enjoy solving problems together, coming up with new ideas and innovations that really can make a positive change in the world. Like I work in semiconductor devices and technology, and these microchips are used in all smart electronic devices today. And we rely on them to communicate, to collect information and to process information and to store information. Without electronic communication and computing devices, society would be quite different today. So we can see the transformative impact that technology has had on people. And so that's inspiring to me and to the students and my colleagues here, to know that what we make makes a big difference, hopefully a positive difference on people in society. That's what we want. We're all about innovation for the benefit of humanity.
So what kind of adversaries have you faced because of like your gender?
I wouldn't say I've faced any adversaries, but yeah, certainly there might have been some barriers because at least decades ago when I was a student, people didn't envision that women were naturally engineers. So I did feel as a student more isolated in my engineering classes, but that's the kind of thing that I wanted to eliminate today as in my current position. Like women should feel like they belong and that they're included in the engineering classes, math classes, physics and chemistry classes, and that they are valued as collaborators in research. Yeah, I didn't really have adversaries. In fact, I had people who were supporting me. Like I said, my husband encouraged me to pursue a PhD, and I had very patient and supportive research advisors at Stanford and a lot of outstanding colleagues to collaborate with here at Berkeley. But I think a lot of it is more societal, stereotypes, right? That puts in the back of your mind, maybe this is not the right field for me. I mean, that's the kind of barrier that I think people who are underrepresented in a field might experience. And those are the things that we would like to work together to eliminate so that there's no impediment to success for people to fully contribute as members of society.
Totally agree. Like even though it's a lot better like today, even in my like computer science class at my high school, there's only like 4 girls in a class of 30. So it's kind of like challenging.
Well, it helps to know you're not alone because I do remember, but looking back, I don't recall that there were any other female students in my engineering classes. But I think it's quite different today. Certainly at Berkeley, it's quite different. I think that some progress has been made, but certainly from what you described, we definitely need to make more progress. It would be helpful to try to understand like the root causes. Why are there a relatively small percentage of female students in computer science classes? If we can figure out why, then maybe we can address the root causes, right? Because
Yeah.
there might be things that discourage women from persisting in computer science. So it's good to identify the cause of the so-called problem and then see if we can address those root causes.
Yeah, I agree. I know that you talked a little bit about how like your husband inspired you, but were there any specific people or like mentors that made an impact on you?
Sure. I've been very fortunate in my life to have a lot of people that set higher expectations for me than I set for myself. So it helps to surround yourself with people who somehow want to see you succeed, right? So it's, of course, starting at home with my parents who set high expectations for me, my husband who inspired me to continue, even though I was kind of discouraged during part of my PhD study, colleagues at Berkeley who apply for certain research grants to pursue my ideas and collaborated with me and gave me opportunities to lead, like lead projects, lead a department, lead a lab, So I think I've been very fortunate to have all these opportunities. But I'll say that looking back, what's important is to be introspective, right? Each of us, as we sort of plan our educational pathway and our career pathway, we should reflect on ourselves, like what inspires us, what is our passion, like what are we most interested in, what do we enjoy doing. Pursuing a career in engineering can be challenging, so there are times we have to overcome barriers and persist. And if you're not interested, if you have no passion for this work, then it's unlikely that you'll achieve your full potential. So I think it's important for every one of us to understand, okay, what motivates us, what inspires us, what are we interested to do, and what kinds of knowledge and skills have we developed or are we interested to develop, and how do those match with our chosen educational and career pathways. So that's one thing. The other thing is to show that you're not in it just for yourself. Like engineering is quite a collaborative profession. Like we have to solve pretty complex problems today working in teams. And if you don't enjoy working with other people, then it's hard for other people to collaborate with you productively and also to support you, to help encourage you to succeed. So a lot of help that we might get from others is because we also ourselves inspire others to help us. Does that make sense? Because they know that somehow it will benefit them or it'll benefit the greater good. So that's also an important consideration. We should not go out and say, okay, who can help me? Like, can you do this for me? Can you do that? I mean, just think, why would somebody want to help you? What is it that you can do to help others? How can you inspire other people to want to see you succeed? So that's an important thing to keep in mind as well. And that comes back to understanding yourself.
Yeah, that's really insightful. I think that's like a great perspective to have. So what do you perceive to be the largest barrier to female leadership?
I think it's still stereotypes in society. You know, that's the way our brains are wired, literally, because we learn as we experience things in life. And our brains are wired to actually react more strongly when something is different, right? So let's say if I suddenly turn off the light, that will catch somebody's attention more so than if just continue like this. It's because something has changed. Well, like if you're in the dark, then your eyes will naturally adapt. It's like, okay, they'll just become more sensitive, right? Your pupils dilate. Our brains essentially adapt to the conditions. So if you grow up in a environment where you see mostly men or only men in certain careers or professions, then it's a natural thing. If you encounter, let's say, a woman in that profession, something inside you will kind of say, oh, this feels different, like strange, right? It'll just trigger something in your brain. And that can lead to unconscious or conscious bias, right? It could be, so conscious bias would be discrimination, outright discrimination. Unconscious bias would be more like, oh, I'm not as comfortable talking with this person, so I'll just go talk to a man who's, you know, in this profession, right? So it's just like it can trigger a degree of discomfort. And that's the implicit bias that can serve to discourage or ignore or devalue women in roles that are traditionally dominated by men. So I think the key to solving this is just to realize that, hey, this is the way people are. This is like a survival instinct. You want to always be alerted when something's different because it could be a danger to you, like in the wild or something. But in the workplace, like we need to understand, okay, this is the way brains are wired, but we should be aware and try to make sure that we don't allow that to cause us to make snap judgments or rush to decisions that are not objective, more like innate, a natural reaction. So I think that's kind of the biggest barriers, like stereotypes that lead to implicit bias.
So I know that you talked about how you were promoting diversity in your leadership position, but why do you think that diversity is important, and like in particular, like gender diversity?
Yeah, so engineers, we essentially come up with solutions to problems that are facing people or society. And this way, by solving problems, we benefit people in society. So if the engineering teams that develop the solutions are not truly considering all members of society, you can come up with some engineering solution that is actually not beneficial to all members of society and in fact can be harmful. So there are many examples of this. A common example that I cite is airbag systems in cars. All automobiles today that are manufactured are required to have some airbag system where if the car suddenly changes in speed, so the acceleration is high, then airbags will deploy and cushion somebody from hitting their head or their body, you know, hitting the dashboard or going through the window or the side and so on. So the very first airbag systems deployed in the early 1990s were actually tested. You know, you have to test to make sure that the airbag system works well. So they were tested with dummies, crash test dummies. But the crash test dummies were sized and weighted like adult Caucasian males. So the airbag systems work just fine for adult Caucasian males of average height and weight and strength. But it took years of data for people to realize, okay, a lot of women are getting injured or even killed because if the airbag is designed to deploy and prevent somebody like a taller man from being injured, you can imagine for women, the airbag would often hit their face. And women have weaker necks than men on average. So you can actually kill somebody with an airbag system. So the data showed that on average, women and children were injured or even suffered deaths. And it took 20 years before the government, the Department of Transportation mandated that car manufacturers had to also use crash test dummies sized and weighted to represent other types of people in society to solve this problem. Okay, so that's an example of lives being dramatically affected by systems that were designed by engineers to benefit people, but they didn't benefit all people. In fact, they hurt some segment of society. And it's very clear that this was because the engineering teams didn't somehow think that, oh, maybe we should test, you know, women might be different than, and maybe different ethnicities. People have different body types and shapes and sizes. Like, why wouldn't you test your airbag system with dummies that are representative of people in society?
So, what traits do you have that help you deal with the like adversity of being a woman in a male-dominated field?
Well, I think it helps to be empathetic. If you want to be successful as an engineer, you want to have empathy in different respects because you want to have empathy for your team members so you kind of understand where they're coming from, try to understand their ideas, their perspectives, because you want to collect the best ideas to come up with the best solution for the problem that you're trying to solve. It's good to have empathy so you show appreciation for everybody's contributions, their ideas on the team. That's men and women. That can give people assurance that you actually value and respect them. So that's important to work effectively as a team member. But also empathy for the customer, like you're designing a device or a system or process for people to use or society to use. So you have to think, okay, different types of people using this, what features or what aspects would they care about most? So I think empathy's important for making sure that you're a successful engineer. And I think the more successful you are as a team member, as a leader, the easier it will be for others to value and respect you, no matter if they're male or female. I think the key is not to be a threat or a competitor with others. You want to show that you collaborate and that you care about something like beyond yourself, right? Whether or not it's the company or society, self-orientation. If it's obvious to everybody that you're just looking out for yourself and you're in it for yourself, that's not the best way to get people to be supportive or eager to work with you and give you a lot of respect.
I also like agree. I think that empathy is really important. So, how do you suggest that like someone cultivate these traits?
Empathy is one. Another one is always being willing to learn new things. The world's changing, evolving, new technologies come out, and you want to learn, you want to adapt and use them, like AI, right? Chat GPT or whatever, generative AI. You have to be a good learner and also to be adaptive, right? So as things change, then you can adapt to the change. So that's also key. That means adapting to different strengths of different team members. You'll generally not work with the same exact team all through your career. You'll be changing teammates and as you change projects. So continually able to learn new things and be adaptive is important. And also really important is communication skills. If you can't communicate your ideas clearly, then how do you expect other people to understand and be able to do something with that input? Also, communication involves listening, right? So listening to make sure you understand what other people's ideas or feedback is. That includes taking constructive feedback so that you can improve on your own ideas. So those are the three things if you want to be successful as an engineering leader: empathy, ability to learn and adapt, and good communication skills, which includes excellent listening skills. So how do you cultivate that? Practice. And I think the good thing here is that I think pretty much any person can continually improve their empathy and ability to learn and adapt and ability to communicate. It's just a matter of recognizing and prioritizing that in your educational journey or your career journey.
So, it's kind of like practice makes perfect.
Yeah, I don't know if we ever reach perfection, but you can try, at home, like with your parents or your siblings, in addition to classmates at school. So there are always opportunities to practice, to try to see other people's point of view. And I view it as a challenge. Like there's some people that are more difficult to work with than others. So challenge yourself. Hey, is there something I can do to really bring out the best in this person? Personally, I enjoy doing that. I derive satisfaction from bringing out the best in others. Because if you bring out the best in others, they'll contribute to the team and you'll have a more successful team. And they'll be happy, you'll be happy, like everybody wins.
And then for our final question, what advice would you give to other women who want to enter engineering?
Well, I think engineering is really a rewarding field of study because not to say that every person should become an engineer, but I think most people can benefit from an engineering education because we teach you critical thinking skills, analytical skills, teamwork, a lot of skills actually to succeed in life. Okay. So I think, first of all, and don't think that you should only study engineering if you want to become an engineer. A lot of engineering grads go on to medical school, to business school, they work in finance, and then they become entrepreneurs as well. Pretty much an engineering education can prepare you for any kind of career. And in fact, I think more of our country's leaders, the politicians, should really have a better understanding of technology because they're developing legislation to regulate the usage or the development of new technologies that could benefit people in society. So that's the first message. Engineering is a great field of study. It can open up a lot of opportunities for you. and you should feel that there's a place for you here. Second is, in order to prepare yourself to succeed as much as possible in engineering study, you want to make sure that you have as much as possible good mathematical skills. So take advantage of all the math classes, tutoring, and other opportunities to learn and apply math. If you have strong math skills and you're comfortable with math, using math, that'll make engineering study easier. It's not going to be impossible if you're not good at math, but I think it just would definitely make it easier. So I would say, don't let anybody discourage you from learning math. And math is one of those things that you practice, you'll get better at it. So anybody that says math is too hard or not for girls, you should ignore them, because we know that the brain is plastic. In other words, we can continually learn, right? Just because you're not good at math today does not mean that you are never going to be good at math. You just try, just like anything in life. It takes some practice. Some things take more practice than others, right? I mean, in sports, people practice pretty hard to really improve their skills. It would be the same way with learning new things like math.
So that's all the time that we have for today. And like, thank you so much for meeting with me.